Hello and welcome back. Today we talk about the subject of what makes God's promise or promises a certainty. So we're going to begin in Hebrews chapter 6 verse 13, and it reads, "For when God made promise to Abraham, because he could swear by none greater, he sware by himself, saying, Surely blessing I will bless thee, and multiplying I will multiply thee." So we're almost immediately given a reason as to why the Most High's promises are a sure thing, because there's no one greater than He is. So when you're at the top and there's no other place to go, and when it's evident that everything in creation is set to a according pace, a certain progression, and there is no deviation. There's no one day the rules and principles of a certain element just disappear, and we're left at a loss, or just being and so uncertain about our future, because His promises are sure, and He has fulfilled His word 100% of the time. He's the best spot to swear upon. Everyone else has brought failure or failings in fulfilling their word. So that is the first thing. Just look at the nature around you, how the sun comes up, goes down, how there's a regular pattern. The moon goes up, goes down, there's a certain pattern. And you just look at how the clouds form, how the birds, the animals reproduce, everything. You see all this magnificent order and a continuation of a promise from long ago. And you see even just the continuation of mankind. So when all those things or all these factors are taken consideration, you realize what he's saying to Abraham, that I'm certain thing, I'm the real McCoy, or I guess McCoy came after the Most High, most certainly, but I think you get what I'm saying. So what's the promise that is being made? He makes two in particular, saying, surely blessing I will bless thee, and multiplying I will multiply thee. And again, we have to remember our target audience here. He is talking to the Hebrews, and specifically the Israelites. And it reminds me of Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 to 5, where, and I would say check it out for yourself, to see the fullness of this promise and what is to come. But the Most High is telling the Israelites at this time, after you go through the blessings that are promised in Deuteronomy chapter 28, and the curses, that afterward I will bless thee. And he's going to bless us back with land, with the resources. And then he also says toward the tail end of Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 5, that he's going to multiply. So as it was said to Abraham, it was said to the later descendants of Israel, which was a prophecy to the future generations at this point in time, which are here present but have been hidden by society, suppressed and pushed down. And this was even the case during the apostles' time, during Paul's time. This suppression of Israel, and like what's going on? Like, I thought that we have our kingdom now. And even with Peter and the disciples, when you look at Acts chapter 1, they're wondering the same question, like, is it at this time that you're going to reintroduce the kingdom and have us be back on top, to paraphrase? But no. What does it say after in verse 15? And so after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise. And that's the same thing for us. Abraham had to patiently endure, and so we must do the same in order to obtain the promise. And it's very similar to, we are the children of Abraham, and we're supposed to be mimicking his faith, just like he had a son, Isaac, and it took him seemingly forever, a part of his life, to actually have this offspring. The Most High is going to do that, continue, because his promises will not fail. They will be a certainty throughout all time. Verse 16, for men rarely swear by the greater, and an oath for confirmation is to them the end of all strife. So this is making a comparison. Like, why do men feel like it's enough just to make a swear or declare an oath and it's good enough? Well, because it's intrinsic inside of them, because that's what the Most High has put into each one of us. Now, I know people will try to go for the ringer and say, oh, there's no written document, but your word is your word. And that's what many people are missing and lacking, the integrity that you will stand by what you say you will do, versus you have to have a piece of paper to reinforce or prove that, okay, this really is the case. If you're being truthful and honest, there's really no need for paper to try to force an issue. It's just the sincerity and clarity of heart that will prompt you to always do what is right. So that's more ordained the documentation that have come with the passing of time because of the dishonesty of men trying to find loopholes. Going forward, verse 17, wherein God willing more abundantly to show unto the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it by an oath. So here we go again. The heirs. So just in case earlier you thought it was just talking about Abraham, well, no, it's talking about the heirs, which are the descendants of Abraham, and showing how immutable his promise is, how he is a certainty. And this goes into it this wise. Verse 18, that by two immutable things in which it was impossible to God to lie, we might have a strong consolation who have fled for refuge to lay hold upon the hope set before us. So this is the reality. The Hebrews were fleeing for refuge. People may be unaware, uncognizant of it, but they were being hunted. They were being persecuted. And they were escaping Roman, if you will, captivity, like abuse by the Romans and so forth. And it's like, when you see all this chaos going on, you're like, is the Most High real? Is the Son real? Like, what's going on? Why am I going through this when I've been doing his will? And what are the two immutable things? Because I know that this used to give me a trip up. Like, what things are we talking about? I thought it was something outside that I was missing, but lo and behold, it's actually within. And let's first look at the word things, which is G4229. And that brings up this right here. So they couldn't translate it as this, the pragma, which is a deed by implication, an affair by extension, an object, material, business, matter, thing, work. So let's focus on that deed. When we look at the deed, his deed that's mentioned to Abraham earlier, the two things is that he was going to bless and multiply. And so it is toward the end, even though it was seeming at this point in time, and even in this stage, he was like, there is no blessing, there's no multiplying. There's still like they're fleeing for refuge from those who persecute. We always need to have a hope before us and take consolation that as it is written, so it will be in our lives. The Most High will come back around, and his promises that were made all the way back in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1 to 5, will be fulfilled to his children in the end. Verse 19, which hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, and which enters into that within the veil. Okay, so now we're going deeper. Now it's beyond just the physical. Now it's going beyond the veil, that spiritual separation that prevents us from seeing the spiritual world around us, in which the Messiah passed through, being a bridge for us. So which hope we have as an anchor of the soul? We have hope because of the Messiah and his sacrifice. And how is it described? It's both sure and steadfast, something that is a solid rock before us. And that's pretty much it with that. And is that hope that, okay, that separation is no longer there between us and the Heavenly Father. Verse 20, whether the forerunner is for us entered, even Jesus, or Yeshua, made a high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And there we go. There we have who was our hope, the forerunner who went before us, the firstborn, has entered before us, being made a high priest who could speak on our behalf. And unlike the Aaronic priesthood, which faded away, you now have the order of Melchizedek, which is to last forever. Anyway, may this be a blessing to you, and I'll see you next time.